Want to show you the scene in Paris live. This is what they're calling the December 5th wall. Massive turnout for protests over the issue of pension reform, which we'll talk about. But look at this. This is the scene in the street near the Gare de l'Est, one of the train stations, and you can see people there with their signs, various unions represented, some of the yellow vests, the gilets jaunes, which have been part of protests in France for some time, but they're taking part in this as well. But that's just one of many groups in a very large demonstration, perhaps the largest of the presidency of Emmanuel Macron, and perhaps one of the biggest tests of his presidency. Want to bring you right to that scene, because outside the Gare de l'Est is freelance reporter Anita Elage, who's with us this morning to give us the live sense. So why don't we begin, Anita, with what you're seeing around you, the kind of scene, and who is there in participating today?
Sure, Heather. Well, I'm here in front of the Gare de l'Est, where, as you can see, there are thousands of people gathering for a demonstration that's going to be starting in about half an hour. People are planning to march across the city, and you have the strikes are led by railway workers, there are teachers, there are hospital workers, but you can also perhaps see that there are more and more members of the Yellow Vest movement gathering here. There's also some concern about members of the Black Bloc turning up. And this is not just in Paris that this is happening. There are more than 250 demonstrations like this across the country happening today.
So what kind of impact, if there are that many demonstrations like that one, what kind of impact are those demonstrations having in the country today, Anita?
Well, the protest started last night with the shutdown, the almost complete shutdown of the transportation system in the country. This morning in Paris, it was very difficult to find a subway train that was running. People were having to find different ways to get to work. It's worth noting that, in fact, people have found different ways to get to work, and things were a little bit quieter than expected. But I think things will be heating up as the day goes on with the protests.
What has brought those people out into the streets are plans by Emmanuel Macron to reform the pension system. These are just plans. This isn't even a done deal yet. They don't even know the details of what he's planning, and yet they are already upset. So I think it's important for us in Canada to understand why France's pension system needs reform. It's kind of a Byzantine arrangement, and why that is so upsetting to people in France.
Well, you're right. It is a Byzantine arrangement. The pension system in France is in trouble. It's going into debt. The way it's set up is that there are 42 different regimes, and so that means that the amount of pension that you get depends on the type of work that you've done, and there can be very broad variations. The French government wants to simplify that system and have one regime for everyone. Many of the workers, those who have most to lose, including railway workers, say that means that they're going to lose a lot of money, and they'll have to work well beyond the current retirement age of 62.
Anita, thank you. An interesting story unfolding there, and a test to Emmanuel Macron's presidency. I appreciate the time today. Anita Elage right there in the midst of those protests in Paris today.